Today on Thought Leader Talks, I speak with Dena Bauckman, the VP of Product Management at Zix Corp. Dena is a CISSP with a keen interest on leveling up data protection using AI and ML. Hello, Dena. Great to have you on.
Yes, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
So, Dena, if we are playing buzzword bingo, the jackpot would have to go to AI and ML. Can you de-jargonize it with a use case of how it can improve SaaS data protection for an organization?
Yes, and you're absolutely right. AI and ML, machine learning, are definitely the buzzwords we hear a lot today.
Right.
And quite honestly, people are kind of using them interchangeably, but there is a difference. Machine learning is much more of what we see, where you can teach a machine to identify and look for things in data. And the other thing too is I kind of address the question. Data protection is obviously a very broad area.
Right.
And so it can cover everything from encryption at rest or in transit to backup and recovery to all kinds of things that have to do with protecting against things like ransomware. But what we really see more than anything in all of those spaces is machine learning.
Okay.
So some examples I can give you that kind of help explain how machine learning helps with data protection. The first thing is we're seeing more and more solutions that can learn to understand what a user's normal behavior is. And by doing that, we can then identify if something is abnormal or out of the ordinary. So let me give you an example on encryption. If we look at when users are sending emails, one of the things that does happen is sensitive data sometimes gets sent to the wrong person.
Right.
Well, if you could identify and understand a user's behavior and where they typically communicate or who they typically communicate with, then you can identify when something is abnormal. They're sending an email to somebody they've never sent to. And then you can, help prevent that type of thing.
And anomaly detection.
Yes, anomaly detection. And that's exactly one of the areas that we see a lot with data protection is okay. Identifying those anomalies.
Okay.
So that's probably one of the biggest ones that I would identify. The other thing is with backups and being able to have the system understand what is typical for changes in the data you're backing up, and then identify and notify somebody if there's an anomaly in that data. So those are probably the most common.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. So recently, we at Cloud Ally also try to introduce anomalous detection in Salesforce in one of our products, where where if there is it can raise a red flag if there's suspicious deletion of data, bulk data happening. Yeah, that's an interesting use case. And moving to cloud adoption and migration, what pointers would you give companies migrating to the cloud? What would you say are the must-haves for a successful and secure cloud adoption?
Yeah, so a couple things I would focus on there is first, if you don't have a lot of expertise in moving things to the cloud, you may want to consider partnering, finding a vendor that can help you do that. And especially, we work a lot with smaller businesses that don't have a large IT organization. And so, it can be really kind of scary trying to do something like moving your data to the cloud. But you can partner with managed service providers that are very familiar with how to do that type of thing.
Right.
And then the one other thing I was going to point out is, obviously, if you're going to move your data and your systems to the cloud, make sure you have a good backup before you start that process. And so if anything should go wrong, you have the ability to recover and get back to at least where you were.
Right, that's true. A safety net for your data.
Yes, exactly.
Uh-huh. And so what advice would you give like an MSP that who's seeking to add data encryption and protection to their suite of solutions to complete it, to
Yeah.
make it a more holistic offering, cloud offering? What are the pitfalls in particular that they should avoid?
Yeah. And I'm going to focus on encryption in transit. That's,
Okay.
the area I have most experience in specifically. But one of the things that is incredibly important is you're looking at different encryption offerings is to understand what impact is that going to have on, for an MSP, it'd be your customer, right? But different solutions will impact users in different ways. And so, for example, email encryption is a great example. It can have a very big impact on end users. And not just even for an MSP, your customer, but your customers, customers and who they're sending an encrypted email to. And so ease of use is going to be one of the most important things to look at is what is that impact? And is the solution you're now going to be offering going to make it hard for the users, or is it going to make it easy for the users? And looking at that trade-off.
Okay. That's true. You don't want to be fumbling through a complex app when you're, when you've lost your data. Yeah.
Exactly.
And a recent survey by IDG reported that 35% of the market mistakenly assume that they are SaaS vendors responsible for data protection. What are the practical implications of the shared responsibility model? It's kind of a shift when you move from on-premise to the cloud. And
yeah, that IDC report was something I think a lot of us in the industry have known.
Right.
But I think it was really pointing out something that people need to stop and think about. When you move to the cloud, you can't assume that SaaS vendor is going to take care of everything for you.
Right.
You need to understand what they do as part of their service and what's still your responsibility. And so, things like security, what security are they going to provide as part of the service?
Okay.
And what are you still expected to do? Again, in fact, probably one of the most common areas where we see an issue here is people assume when you move to a cloud service that that service provider is going to protect your data. They're going to do backups of your data. And so if anything happens, they'll just restore your data.
Right.
That's not always true. And so you need to make sure you understand exactly what the vendor is taking responsibility for and what you need to take responsibility for.
That's true. And, this October, we celebrate National Cybersecurity Month, and it's a mixed celebration given the continued ransomware storm targeting all industries, healthcare, education, financial, government, and now even a major candy maker ahead of Halloween. So what tricks would you advise us to combat the gowl of ransomware?
Yeah, unfortunately, ransomware has become just, almost commonplace, and it's a huge issue. My first advice would be to focus on the primary attack vector that is used in ransomware and in a lot of different types of attack. And that's going to be email. And the reason email is a primary attack vector is ultimately, if you can get your ransomware, your attack, past whatever defenses are in place and in a user's inbox, users are our weakest link. They can be tricked. There's all kinds of ways to kind of get them to react and do something they shouldn't. And that's why this month of security awareness training is so important, because the users are kind of your last defense. And so you need to have your email as secure as possible, but you also need to make sure those users are aware that they need to be on the lookout for, tricks and things that attackers do.
Right. Train them about the red flags as far as
Yes.
email
Yeah.
hygiene is concerned. That's
Yeah.
true. And talking about email encryption and compliance, it's a very crowded market. What would you say differentiates Zig Secure Cloud?
Yeah, the primary thing that we focus on, you're right, there is a lot of vendors in this space, but what makes us different is we focus on ease of use, trying to make security and compliance easy. Easy for everybody that's involved in it. That could be from our MSP partners to our customers and to the end users. And so, and that's very critical, because a lot of what we also see is the harder you make security and compliance, the more people don't fully embrace it, and they don't do everything that they should. And so by making it easy to implement, configure, manage, all of that, it just makes it better for everybody involved, and makes people more likely to take advantage of all the security and capability.
That's true. That's important. Thank you, Dena. You've shared some great insights on data protection and how we need to ingrain email security backup into our the very fabric of our cybersecurity plans.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Bye, Dena.
All right.